Welcome to Helk's Rant. This is a new sort of series that we're setting up so that we can produce them faster than podcasts. Podcasts take time. We have to plan people, we have to get guests, we have to come up with topics, and sometimes there are just rants that I want to go off on and talk about different things that are kind of in the meta, so to speak, especially when it comes to Final Fantasy. So, with that being said, one of the big things that I've done is I have gone back to Final Fantasy XIV. And the funny thing is that nothing's really changed with Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, there's new content since I left. There's all sorts of different things that you can do, and there's new events, new dungeons, new raids. But there's nothing that's really changed since I left. So why am I going back? I thought about it long and hard. I had been playing WoW for a while, with the Legion expansion, and I had left Final Fantasy XIV after the Heavensward expansion. I think I left after a 3.2, just because I was kind of fed up. I felt like it was getting stale. But I realized that it wasn't really the game getting stale. I realized that what it really was that I was kind of hitting a wall for what I could do with that amount of time, without seriously getting into the intense raiding, into the Alexander Savage mode raiding. And that was something that really discouraged me because there was no mid-level stuff. But the thing is that now, right now, we're up to 3 kids. We're fostering to adopt 3 kids, which is a whole nother issue that I could talk about. And I will eventually. I'm going to talk about it on here. It'll be a less video game oriented podcast and more of just, Helk ranting. But what I realize is that, with my time now, I have so many hours in a day, and most of them are not dedicated to video games. Maybe at the end of the day I get to play a couple hours of video games, and then I have to I either go to bed or I have to do something. There's work to be done. I have grading, all of that stuff. But with that time loss in video games, I remember when I was playing Final Fantasy XIV originally when A Realm Reborn came out, and I was able to dedicate as much time as I wanted to the game, because it was just my wife, me, and our animals. And at the time, I think we only had a cat and a dog, which really was so, was so much less stressful than the current 3 cats, 2 dogs, and 3 children. The kids being varied ages 2, 3, and 8. And I mean, it set up an entire different dynamic in my household. So now, rolling back to Final Fantasy XIV, the game hasn't changed, but my time has changed towards it. I'm not looking to do as much anymore in the game. I'm not thirsting for all of this content that is just not available, and it's fine. It's fine that there isn't a plethora of stuff, at least for me. There's just not enough time for me to get into all of it. And, when I was signing on every day playing, 4+ hours of the game when I say 4+, I was probably playing, more like 6+. That's a crazy amount of time to game on. Now it's like, okay, I have 2 hours. I could play some Final Fantasy right now, or I can play Heroes of the Storm, or I can play Overwatch, or I can, there's all of these different options to me, and it's not like, everybody looks at their backlog of gaming and, they're like, oh, I gotta play this, I gotta play this. I don't really feel like I have to play anything anymore. I have to have fun when I'm playing a video game, and if I'm not having fun, I'm not gonna play it. And I think that kind of leads me to where, Final Fantasy XIV, because I'm like, oh, I want to heal in this game now, which is what I'm doing. If you've seen my other videos, you have seen me playing as Conjurer, trying to get him up to White Mage. I already have a higher level Scholar, but I didn't want to do Scholar. I want to do White Mage. So as you can see, my Conjurer is what he is. and I'm having fun, even though I'm not playing with a lot of people that I typically have in the past. But I'm able to just kind of veg and play this game in which I heal people and then berate them for not being the greatest tank in the world, So, but it's important to look at it from that perspective. I remember when I got through Heaven's Word when it was released, the whatever 3.0, whatever version it was, and I was like, okay, well, what else? And it was like, well, we're taking a break, and it felt like it took forever for all of that, and I remember being like, oh, this sucks. I'm not. I just don't know if I can play this anymore. And then the updates rolled through, and it was kind of vanilla. And then you look at other games and you go, I could play other stuff. And when you have a lot more time, playing other stuff makes sense. But now I can, where it's like I can play anything and enjoy pretty much any game that I own. It makes sense for me to return to Final Fantasy XIV, and especially with an with the patches that I haven't gone through for the story mode, and also just the upcoming in June Stormblood, I think is the expansion, and that's going to be fun. New classes are always fun. We often talk about, or not often talk about, but one thing that's amazing is that Final Fantasy XI is still in existence, and people love that game. The people that were really into that game still really love that game. I tried to get back into it. It just did not, unfortunately the game has aged, and for me it hasn't aged as well as I wanted it to. And it's not saying that it's anything bad. It's just that the game is not what I want it to be anymore. It's not a quick game. It's not a quick pickup. It's not, it's very macro based still. I'm not as interested in playing that style of game. Whereas with Final Fantasy XIV, hop in, do things, you're good to go. There's a duty finder. There's things that you can do around the city. You can do quests around the city. There's a visible quest. And people will say, well, the diehards, the ones that live for the challenge of playing the game. Here's the thing: a game shouldn't be challenging to try to get into it. A game's challenge should be when you're playing it and something gets difficult and how you can respond to it. Do you get better? Do you get worse? Not, how do I find this quest and who do I talk to and where do I go? There's no map on screen. I have to keep on opening my map and it's a pain. And it's funny that, with the third-party options that they have for Final Fantasy XI now, and people go, "Oh, well, that's cheating." Well, whatever. It's an add-on, that puts a mini map on your screen. I don't think that's cheating because honestly, it's less immersive to keep on opening a map than it is to go, "Oh, I'm going in that direction," and just keep on going in that direction so that you can get to where you want to go. I don't know. I think that I think that the games. I think that MMOs as a whole have some soul searching to do, because there's no. I don't know. The content level has to be available to everyone, whether it be low level, in the content, that content will always be there. The diehards that want to raid, the hardest stuff. And then the people in the middle that want to do hard but don't have the time to dedicate, like the diehards. So when we talk about my current position in gaming, like I said, 3 kids, a wife, 5 animals, an entire zoo of things happening in my household. It's hard for me to dedicate that diehard time, and I won't ever probably do it, just because I'm gonna get older, I'm gonna get more ornery, and I'm not gonna play video games as much as I want to right now, just because there's gonna be more important things happening. My kids will be getting older, they'll be doing things, I'll be more involved with them. It doesn't mean that I stop playing video games altogether, but it means that my consumption of them changes, and I think that in one of our previous podcasts, Rin really made a good point on what was happening, whereas the raids in Final Fantasy XIV are made so it's a single boss battle, whereas with World of Warcraft, raids were were like 10 bosses, and you had to go over here and go over there and go over here, but you had a week to do it. Um, so that's a difference. I don't know. The way I approach gaming now is that I have such a little amount of time to move forward with it that I'm enjoying games when I play them. Um, Whether it be a competitive game like Heroes of the Storm or just playing an MMO like Final Fantasy XIV. It's been fun to play it, to get back into the world of Eorzea because it's something I'm familiar with and I enjoyed it before, and it's fun to see things now. Um, so I'm going to keep on playing it, and I'm going to keep on streaming it, and you're going to keep on hearing me talk about it from time to time, and you might hear me complain about it from time to time, because I'll remember the minor annoyances that exist. But I don't think you're going to hear me go, oh, well, there needs to be more content, because honestly, I don't play enough anymore to thirst for that content. So that is the end of our first Helk's rant. It wasn't really a rant as much as it was just an explanation as to why I'm playing this game again. There will be rants in which I talk about, what angers me in certain games. Like I said, in Final Fantasy XIV, you're going to hear me talk about the minor annoyances. But I think right now, I wanted to start off on somewhat of a positive note. You don't want to just start, screaming about whatever because, like I said, I'm going to get more and more ornery and crotchety as I get older. So there will be some more interesting Helk rants as we go along with this. So if you liked it, give us a like, comment, subscribe, whatever, all the things. You can catch me on Twitch. Address will be in the description. And that is how that will go. Well, thank you for listening, and I will catch you all later. Take care.